Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our step-by-step vehicle construction tutorial series. In this series and this particular video, I'll show you exactly how I construct specific vehicles, so that you can follow my steps exactly and create the same kind of magnificent creations yourselves. Or simply get inspired to do your own awesome vehicles and share them with us, of course, via our Discord or any other social media site, because we would love to see what you come up with. At any rate, before we begin, I do have a disclaimer, and that is the fact that this game is still in development and that nothing you see here is final. If you want to check out more information about Dieselpunk Wars, then please, by all means, have a look at our Kickstarter campaign, which is live right about now, and consider backing us if you like what you see. Now that this introduction is finished, however, I'd like to get working on our first vehicle, and for this video it is going to be a ship capable of taking massive amounts of damage while dishing out also massive amounts of damage in turn. So something that our backers had the most problems with, as flying vehicles and regular ground vehicles were fairly easy to construct, whereas water makes things a little bit complicated sometimes. So I hope to fix those issues by showing you exactly how I create an awesome boat. The very first thing you need to take care of is protecting your command block, as it is the most important one to protect. I'm going to surround it by crew modules, as they will first of all provide me with extra crew for my vehicle, as well as provide some last-ditch effort protection for my command block should it ever be exposed to the elements. Afterwards, it's a question of adding some extra liquid fuel tanks, as they cannot really be caught on fire, so they are fairly safe to use, and again they will provide me with a little bit of extra protection around my command module. Now, with those things ready, I can begin adding some extra engines. I'll go for a double-decker setup because I'll need a lot of engine power. After that, I'll add some gyroscopes in order to increase the stability of my vessel, as well as a couple of cooling modules, so that I can push my engines to their limits for a little bit while longer, without them overheating and eventually catching on fire. Engines are fairly close to our core modules, so we must make sure to never ever let them catch on fire. Now, with those things in place, and after adding another crew compartment, it's time to prepare for laying down the armor. I'll use a scaffolding to basically separate the armor blocks from the core of my vehicle. As the core is the most vulnerable, it has to be protected, and I want the enemy impacts to be fairly far away from my core blocks. It also serves another purpose of making sure that I'll have plenty of distance between my core vessel elements and my ammo storages, as they are rather explosive and I want to make sure that they are far away from anything that's vitally important. With that in place, I can begin laying down my armor, and this is a fairly simple, although relatively slow process. All it requires me to do is to just place armor. In this case, I'm going for wedge shape in order to make traversing the waters a little bit easier and make sure that my vehicle is fairly aerodynamic, because keep in mind that air drag and all of the other complex physics stuff is actually taken into account in this game. Moreover, this kind of shape should also provide me with better protection against incoming enemy projectiles, so yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of that. Of course, as you have noticed, I'm also going to place my actual ammo blocks in the back of my vehicle, since for the most part I'll face the enemies, so I want my ammo modules to be safely tucked away in the back and never ever touching directly with my engines or any other core components, so they're separated by a small gap. With all this said and done, it's a matter of adding extra stories to my armor, making sure that it extends upwards and downwards. I'll start with upwards, make sure that everything is properly sloped, so that again, when enemy projectiles hit my vessel, there is a high chance that they will ricochet off of my armor and fly into something that's hopefully not one of my allies. So after filling in some of the holes, I'll be ready to actually start thinking about arming this vehicle, since I have all of the core components already placed, other than the weapons themselves and a means of propulsion, which I'll leave for the very end. So for the weapons, I plan to have a few sets of them. First of all, at the front, I would like to have a few mounted fixed guns. In this case, they are armor-piercing. They should be capable of destroying even the heaviest armored objects. They're also placed in a place right at the front of my vehicle. They can be like this. Sure, they are a little bit exposed, but at the same time they are very hard to hit, because especially when I'm facing the enemy, they have very low profile, so it's hard to aim at them, hard to destroy them, and they can dish out a good amount of damage. They're a bit hard to aim, but that is okay. Next up, I'll add a very big triple-barreled gun at the top, and also somewhat to the front of the vehicle, and also two explosive ones slightly further to the back and to the sides of the main gun. These ones will be very, very crucial when fighting against lesser armored opponents and the faster kind of opponents as well. And they will inflict a very, very nice amount of damage. I don't need to have any more armor piercing, since the first 4 guns cover the armor piercing aspect very well by themselves. After placing the guns, it's a matter of making sure that they are properly protected, so I'll put as much armor around them as possible, so it will be very difficult to destroy them. Of course, by hitting the guns directly, one can destroy them fairly easily still, but I want to make this task as difficult for my enemies as it is humanly possible, of course. Now, I also would like to have a little bit of an upper deck above my vehicle, and it serves two purposes. First of all, it will add an element I didn't add yet, and that is the spotting module, which will allow me to see my enemies, hopefully before they can see me. So I'll add quite a few of those spotting modules actually, and make sure they will also be added to other parts of my vehicle so I can see enemies from all angles. And secondly, and quite importantly, I'll also put a bunch of anti-air turrets at the top. Now, they are not, technically speaking, designed to be anti-air, but I'm personally a big fan of their ability to shoot down enemy airships. They're quite efficient at that. They don't pack the most firepower ever, but I guess most airships you don't necessarily need that. And for the most part, airship bombs, to be more specific, are very, very dangerous, and I want to make sure that I have ample anti-air protection. Of course, what I'm left with is making sure that I put extra armored blocks at the bottom of my vehicle so they can actually properly float and swim, and that isn't too afraid of the torpedo attacks, although they will always be terrifying. So I'm going to lower the armor thickness of any blocks I place underneath my vehicle, because I don't need them to be the most resistant blocks ever, but I do want them to make sure that my vehicle floats rather well. So with less mass, they're going to still provide me with a fairly good amount of displacement, and they will make sure that my vehicle stays afloat nice and easy. And for the most part, enemies are not going to really fire at them. Final thing I want to add to my vehicle is a little bit of a row where I hide my propulsion. So I'm going to do it at the very bottom of the vehicle where it's safe, and I'm going to add a bunch of sea propellers in there, as well as a bunch of steers. And at the very back of my vehicle, I'm going to add a few more, using the fact that I had extra power to spare, as well as seaside propellers, in order to allow my vehicle to turn a little bit better, because otherwise it would be very, very slow and very difficult to turn. Now, I also want this vehicle to have a little bit of a means of extra propulsion in case of emergency. So I'm going to add extra few 3 rocket engines, and also I'm going to add some air propellers as well. Now, the air propellers are awesome. They're not only useful for airships, but they can also be used as extra means of adding speed to your vehicle. In this case, they'll make my vehicle quite a little bit faster. 2 of them is enough. I don't have power for more. Rocket engines, thankfully, don't use up your power. They just build up extra heat. Now, you may also notice that I'm placing some extra sub-floaters in my ship. Now, this ship isn't designed to be a submarine. I didn't install any torpedo launchers in it or anything of this sort. But having the sub-floaters means that if it for some reason is submerged, for instance as a result of enemy attack, it will not take extra damage just by the virtue of being underwater. And I'll also have extra control over if I want to, float back onto the water or if I want to stay below water. So it's always a neat idea to have a sub floater or 2 or 4 in your ship. After that, it's just finishing touches, making sure that the armor thickness is properly set up throughout the entirety of my ship, which I may have messed up at some point, but it's of no big importance. And of course, paint job is always important. I had a little bit of a tough time deciding on this particular paint job, but eventually I came up with something that satisfied me, let's say. So yeah, I think the end result looks doesn't look too shabby. I think it looks maybe not the most like the most intimidating vessel, but it's also part of its design. It's not supposed to attract too much attention. Now, after I'm done painting it, I also need to make sure that it has properly set up its control groups of its turrets. So in this case, I want to have 3 control groups for my turrets. First of all, for the turrets at the front, and which are going to attack independently of my main guns, and I'm going to set them to the group 2 and let them just aim by themselves. Now, I as a player cannot aim them, but the computer is going to aim them for me. Now, as for the other guns, I'm going to have the main guns be controlled by me. They will stay in the first control group, and finally the upper guns are going to be moved to the third control group and also be controlled by an AI, which is going to ensure that these are that I don't have to worry about any incoming enemy aircraft. Those guns are going to simply open fire by themselves and take care of anything that flies above me. So let's see how good this vehicle is. In my opinion, Youtubus Swimus looks amazing, but I also want to know if it can hold its ground in combat, so I created a fighting scenario for it. A free-for-all against 4 other ships. Death Cloud, a very agile and destructive bomber. Ship of the Line, the largest pre-constructed vehicle we've got available in our demo. Wave Crasher with its loads of guns, very effective against large vehicles. And also, of course, the Sea Monster, potentially the scariest of all of these 4 vehicles. And against all of them, my one lone Youtubus Swimus. So let's see if it can hold its own. Wish me luck, and let's get ready for a fight. As you can see, our auto-aiming turrets have already opened fire, and the rest of our weapons are also laid bare on our enemies, and we will not yield to anybody. Of course, the Ship of the Line is formidable. It's also quite well armored. I am looking for its ammo blocks, however, or any other critical blocks I might run into. And I'll do my best to tear it apart, and there we go, it's been destroyed. Wonderful. However, my ship has also taken a substantial amount of damage. I am protected from the Sea Monster by Wave Crasher, but Wave Crasher itself is a dangerous beast until I destroy it as well. Turns out, Ship of the Line is still alive and kicking, although it's only partially still alive, but don't worry, we put it out of its misery. What do we have left? We've got the Death Cloud. Like I said, it is a surprisingly dangerous creation. And my auto-turrets are currently focused entirely on the closer vehicles that are on inland. But now they switch targets and they will now open fire onto the Death Cloud. There is still, of course, the Sea Monster, as terrifying as the name implies. But I believe that since we survived this long, we might be capable of taking it down as well. It is a one-on-one scenario, so not an easy one for sure, but looks like we struck gold. We destroyed some of its ammo supplies, and it is now being completely devastated. Now, our ship, of course, also has seen better days, but it looks like it's for the most part survived this encounter. I'll now need to try to clear the Death Cloud, which is easier said than done, certainly, but a few good hits like this and it should be toast. There we go, my auto-turrets opened fire on it, and it shouldn't live long to tell the tale facing Youtubus Swimus. I just need a few good hits, and there we go, it's practically destroyed, even if there's something left. So my auto-turrets will continue firing upon some of the submerged enemies that are still somewhat partially functional, but as you can see, Youtubus Swimus emerged victorious, and it's actually holding on quite nicely. It does have a few big holes, but it works. So I'm very proud and satisfied with this design, and I think it is probably my favorite vehicle I ever made. So I wish you luck when you make your vehicles like this, and I hope and I believe you can do even better than that. I know you can do far better than that. But if you need more information about Dieselpunk Wars, please don't forget to check out our Kickstarter campaign, and also check out our Discord channel as well as any other of our social media sites. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck in all of the battles to come.